want to use mine?
No. I have two.
Yeah, no, I think I put it.
Can you actually do me a favor? Can you check the link real quick? Should be on.
You sent me it.
Yeah, I sent you.
My internet is shit. Yours is okay?
Yeah.
No, not the gas company. You see the parking lot was already full. Yeah, I just got a lot of these sentences.
I've already the full day.
There you go. Okay. Like, my friend was. I know Dad did. I don't know. I know my daughter's working, so she didn't try.
You're good?
I know, that's right.
Did you get a?
We got a chat. Thank you, chat. I love technology.
All right. I will call the Education Committee meeting to order March 1st at 6:30. The entire committee is in attendance. We have some guest speakers, which we will announce as needed. I am having a slight personal issue at my home. So if for any reason I have to leave, Mr. Winters might be taking over. All right, so it looks like Wonders 2020 is up first.
Yes, let me just pull this up. Hold on 1 second. I have it right here. Just connect here. All right, thank you, Mrs. Reece. Good evening. It's now officially evening. Okay, so for this evening, we have a presentation on a refresh or an upgrade, if you will, on the Wonders Resources version copyright 2020. We'll talk a little about what we're currently using, and going through the presentation, I wanted to make sure I included some of our teachers. So we have Allison Navarrete, who is one of our second grade teachers at Eagleville. Thank you, Allison, for coming. We also have Kelly Barnes. There's Kelly, our fifth grade teacher over at Skyview. And we have Joyce Amici, who is our principal at Worcester Elementary, but also has a reading background as well. I'd also like to introduce Tara Strauss. Today is her first day officially starting with us here in Methacton.
Yes.
She's our new supervisor of elementary ed, so we're just getting her right on in. So and at some point, I'm not going to go through this whole presentation because there's a lot of things in here. I'll make it available for all of you and the public. But really, Doug Fisher, who's a big literacy guru in the field, talks about every student deserves a great education, not by chance but by design. So when we look at the resource that we're using to support our ELA standards and curriculum, Wonders is one that we certainly feel is important for our students to have access to all the different resources. It's very strong in the digital literacy component for our students, but it's also, you'll find out from our teachers today how interactive it is for our students. So who uses Wonders? In Montgomery County, you can see a list of districts that are using it. Some are currently piloting, but these are the active users. Chester, Philadelphia, and Delaware County. Again, you've all seen this before as part of our curriculum review cycle. Stage 1 is where we write the curriculum. Stage 2 is where we look to, once we write it, we then look to find a resource, and we discovered through our own work that Wonders has a new product out that meets the needs of our students. We piloted it, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about today, the importance of having a pilot with our 12 teachers at the elementary level, and we are making a recommendation to move forward with it. I have I'll let you guys take a look at some of the resources as I go through it. Again, the umbrella of ELA, it incorporates, people think ELA, English Language Arts, is really just about reading and writing. It is also about listening and speaking. So under the umbrella for Pennsylvania, we talk on the left part about those foundational skills, K1 and 2. We always say at the primary grades, it's more about learning how to read. And then in the upper grades, it's really transitioning it to, now you're reading to learn. So we have informational text, which is our nonfiction, literature, which is our fiction. It's about 50-50. We spend about half our time on informational and nonfiction text and 50% on our fiction text. We have writing, 3 aspects of writing: persuasive, narrative, and informative. And of course, speaking and listening, giving kids opportunities to collaborate, communicate, and have conversations. So again, there's strong research with it. It's a 188-page document. You can certainly go out to EdReports and find out. I have some samples here. The good news is through EdReports, that's the clearinghouse, it got all greens, which is very rare to get. Not only, they don't do exceeds, but actually meets the expectations for text quality, building background knowledge, and of course usability. Everything is just through edreports.org. It's a nonprofit, but when you're looking to adopt a program or a resource, you want to go to there first to make sure it's been vetted. And of course it has. So again, with our teacher edition, our Your Turn practice book, we give students access to a lot of materials, a lot of resources. Many of them they currently already have, so this really is an upgrade. It's like going from an iPhone 6 to like the iPhone 13. It's just more bells, whistles, it's more powerful, longer battery life. That's the equivalent of this Wonders 2020. Student materials, we'll be using the reading writing companion because all the research shows it should not be separated, it should be integrated, reading and writing. There'll be an anthology, literature anthology, and I'll pass around a sample for you in just a little bit. In kindergarten, they use big books, and there'll be 32 of them. It looks very similar to this. It's also digital, so when the teachers instruct, not only will this be on their cart, but it'll also be simultaneously on the large screen like we have here. So there's 32 of these. In first grade, they start off with the softbound, and then they go into the hardbound book. So first grade is that transition year. We're not recommending it for 6th grade, but Wonders does go all the way through 6th grade. Decodable readers, so important for our K1-2 students. As we saw in that first slide, those foundational skills, that's where these decodable readers come in. They're certainly meant for the upper grades, but we really focus for K1 and 2. Leveled readers, the beauty about Wonders is, if you remember earlier in the previous slide, I talked about 50% should be fiction and 50% should be nonfiction. What happens with Wonders is there's different levels for students. There's an approaching level, an on-grade level, an ELL, which is really on-grade level but has vocabulary highlighted in a different way, and then the beyond level readers. If it's fiction, there's actually 4 different stories based on a different lexile, based on a different reading level. But if they're focusing on the nonfiction, it's actually the exact same story, just at a different level for each child. So when you bring the students back to have large group instruction and whole class discussion, every child got that same book. So for example, the fiction level readers, the on-grade level and the ELL readers, same story, just vocabulary is highlighted in a different way. Our approaching and our beyond, again, has the same theme, same concept, but if you're looking for the similar story, that happens in the nonfiction. So half of our nonfiction series is the same story, different level. In the previous slide, it's a different story, same theme, but a different story. Okay, so again, I'll take a moment for you to pass around the table. These are, you can see on the back, it has the lexile level, which is the reading level. It tells you the benchmark level as well. But you can tell the different color codes. The different color codes, again, you can actually see from the different color codes when you look and see what the level is. Again, orange is approaching, on level is blue, beyond level is green, and our ELL, something with a strong language, it's also the same as us. The on level just has the vocabulary highlighted in a different way. So really what the overview is, in kindergarten, there's 10 units of instruction, about 3 weeks apiece. In grade 1, there's 6 units of instruction, and in grades 2 to 6, there's also 6 weeks of instruction, but it drills down in a different way because the pacing for first grade is a little different than we do in grades 2 to 6. So what's new? Basically, in a nutshell, there's a lot that's new, but grades K to 1, it's the genre study. Grades 2 to 6 is the 10-day genre study. A lot of social emotional workshop. It's backed by the Sesame Street Foundation. More phonics, explicit instruction in phonics. We know how important that is for our primary students. There's a foundational skills, there's interactive student edition, so students, not only will they have the hard copy to have put at their fingertips. Again, this is an example of a 3rd grade literature anthology. Pass that around, but it's also, everything is accessible through the McGraw-Hill website as well, the ConnectEd website. So if a student is absent, if a student's going away for a few days, they can have access to all those literature materials as well. The practice book, the data dashboard will be available. We'll talk more about the assessments later. Again, it incorporates all 4 of the big ELA standards into Pennsylvania. All those components are part of it. Again, foundational skills, the interactive read aloud, the shared and the close reading. Again, close reading is, we used to call it in our generation rereading, but really it's close reading with a different purpose, a different framework in mind. Large reading component. Again, there's level libraries or for the guided reading groups, and of course, giving students independent choice. Right. Again, gradual release of responsibility. I do, we do, you do. So teacher models, we're going to get together, and based on the information that I get back, it tells me how much small group instruction needs to take place. If there's 4 students, 10 students, 3 students. If there's a group of 10, maybe I need to keep going further with the I do and we do before we turn it over to the you do. Now show me what you can do. Again, it talks about that phonics skill trace, all the way through initial consonants, all the way through recognizing whole words. And Donald Bear, the guru in phonics and phonemic awareness. Right? And Doug Fisher talks about, there's that close reading, the surface reading. Now you go back and read with a different purpose, read with a different meaning. Go back and extract the information. What connections can you make? So really getting down to that levels of knowledge. Webb's depth of knowledge has 4 levels. Levels 2 and 3 is where the actual impact for learning takes place. Level 4 is beyond. We'd love to see kids at level 4, but not all students are there. So again, the interactive reading companion, it goes together. Right now we currently have in the 2014 and 2017 edition, it's called the Your Turn Practice Book. This actually takes the writing skills and the reading skills and puts them all together. I'm not going to go through too much of the writing workshop. We'll talk later about that. But the biggest piece now is it gives students an opportunity not only in their paper journal, but they can also work online. What I'd like to do is stop right here and talk a little bit with our teachers who we have present tonight. We have a primary grade teacher again. We have Mrs. Navarrete, who's our 2nd grade teacher at Eagleville. She was one of our pilot teachers, and we also have Mrs. Kelly Barnes, who's also our 5th grade pilot teacher. And again, we pretty much have 2 at every grade level across the 5 different buildings to really get their teacher input and to get student feedback. So Allison and Kelly, want to come on up? Are you okay? Are you comfortable talking from there? Sure. So just talk about what you're seeing with your students, Allison, now versus you know, what you've had in the past, but moving forward with what you're seeing this year.
So what's new for the kids would be the reading writing companion, and that is basically what Matt said, just adding in the writing piece and finding text evidence, but it's all in one thing. So it's not really like your typical old school workbook of like fill in the blanks. It's really, you're finding text evidence, you're underlining it, you're circling it, you're inferencing. It's all those skills that need to be in there, but right there in one book as you go. So that would be new for kids, and it's great for teachers too. All the teachers that I've talked to really love that, and it really does have a nice They do like to have like a book, like they kind of feel like, especially in second grade, like, oh, this is my big like textbook. And the stories in there, they also find them in the library, so they find, they're excited that like, oh, we read the Big Red Lollipop, and now I can find it in the library too. So it's actually authentic literature, which is good to have in their hands as well. Where the other, the level readers are contrived for the vocabulary as well as the other shared reads. So they kind of make sure they get the vocabulary where the anthologies get to be actual real books that they can check out later. So they like that. And the writing piece has really heated up with the Wonders 2020. So, for example, we just finished Unit 3, which was all expository text. So everything we read, all unit was expository text, non-fiction. And so then the writing was expository text. So they just finished their expository text pieces, and it all flowed with the same theme that was music and expressing yourself. And so everything they read and everything they wrote flowed perfectly together, which our previous Wonders series did not do that. So that is what I'm finding the benefit of this is everything just has a better flow. Like where Matt uses the iPhone analogy, I use like kitchen remodeling analogy. Like it's still your kitchen, you still have all your pots and your dishes and all your stuff, but you just have a better flow around your kitchen now. And maybe you have a new oven, your anthology, something shiny in here too. So it just flows better, works better for kids, for teachers. I think it's been really great so far. And I'm only halfway through. I just finished grade 6 units.
That's awesome. I think what we've seen too is that it's easier to prep for your lessons now. They're not spending as much time downloading information, pulling resources off the website. Everything's at your fingertips. So they have the teacher's edition, they have the anthology. Like I said, it really is just an upgrade because the level readers aren't changing. So we're not getting everything. We're not getting the brand new kitchen, so to speak. Like we're not gutting everything. We're just adding on certain
You're not
things.
asking teachers to completely reinvent the wheel again in September. So
Yep.
it's something comfortable that we know, but it's just better. It's improved.
That's my biggest question, because I feel like I've heard so much from like pages not matching, pulling out things, doing all those, like
Oh,
I
wow.
heard the hardships
Yes.
of what happened.
Not anymore.
So you really feel like it sounds like it's flowing, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I really feel like this is the missing piece that I was looking for. So when I start my lessons, I'm reading the same read aloud that I used to. It's the same one. I do this, the shared read is the same story we used to read, but then it kind of stopped there. I had to pull and find, how I was going to teach the skills. And here now, I'm just getting warmed up. Like we read the story, but now I have the reading writing companion. We're going to write about that story. And now we're going to read another story, the anthology, the anchor text, which is longer and really interesting and practice even more. And then we can take the level reader, which is the same as what I've had before. It's just that missing piece that we were looking for. The assessments are much more streamlined. The key skills are very clear at the beginning. If you're doing personification and theme, then the test is one story with just personification questions, one story with just 2 theme questions, and then a third story that has a mix. It sounds long, but it hasn't. It's been totally fine for my 5th graders.
Yeah.
The analysis piece for 5th graders is so much better.
I mean, that's a huge thing right now with, right, for the PSAs, like analysis. I feel like
Had an analysis.
X-Pen, like that's our.
Yeah. Kelly, for your 5th graders, are you seeing, you want to share a little bit about that reading writing connection, which is so critical in the upper, all the grades, but especially in 4th grade and above where they're being held accountable more for the TEAs, that text-dependent analysis.
Yeah, everything they say is, you read about it, you write about it in Wonders. And the reading writing companion gives them the tools to write more independently in that analysis. So there's going to be 2 or 3 pages of maybe some guided graphic organizers and finding the text evidence together and looking at the skills, the text structure, whatever it is that we might need to answer a response question. So then they can look back and they have the tools they need, they have the information they need, they just have to put it together in words and make it make sense.
I was going to ask about that piece as far as the students and whether they felt more independent. So I'm glad you touched on it, just because I also have a 5th grader and I feel like, you may have a different story, but you don't have, but I'm just wondering if they feel more independent with using a resource.
It's a gradual process for sure. It is. Everything has been very guided, but I am starting to see them being able to do a little bit more on their own.
More.
We've practiced it so much that just little by little, there's that gradual release, on their part. Some are more ready than others, but.
And I think too, if they're starting to learn these strategies in first, second, third grade, by the time they do get to fifth grade, it will be a lot more streamlined and a more natural process, because it's going to be the same reader's writing companion book in the lower grade level as going up into fifth grade.
And we're introducing finding text evidence in a second grade version of, underline or find it in the story, and then write about it and try and, so even we're introducing it even as young as second grade, which like you said is going to be on the tests.
One question I had was, we always talked about like adding a writing curriculum. You don't feel like, it sounds like it's so well embedded now that need is not, it's being addressed completely within
Yeah, I think it's
content.
comprehensive enough, at least in second grade. And it gets all different genres, because you do the different genres as you read them, and then, like Kelly said, you read about it, you write about it. So, I feel like I'm doing more writing this year than I've ever done.
Which is what they need more than ever. They have now to get exposure.
And part of it was the original Wonders, when it came out in 2014, and the upgrade to 2017, it was actually called Reading Wonders. It's no longer called Reading Wonders, it's actually called Wonders, because it was a hard component, and I can talk to Tara in my previous experience. We had to do a lot of homegrown writing. McGraw-Hill heard loud and clear that it should be together. So this reading writing companion, this workbook, this interactive text, integrates that writing component. There's 3 domains: the persuasive, informational, and narrative, just seamlessly. So it's now just called Wonders. So it takes the reading, writing, and combines them together.
I had 2 more questions. I'm sorry.
No, please.
The one was like, with the, we have our benchmarking, we have our leveling. Do you feel like as they advance, you're able to like shift through those different levels, especially like second graders? Because sometimes in the beginning they're not catching on with reading. All of a sudden they speed up, they get it, they understand, they pronunciate. You know what I mean? Do you feel like you're able to just, when you could shift them right into like those different levels?
Yeah, and that's really, there's a good range, and there sometimes it's the same book but just a different level, so
You're able to just.
right, they can just go to what their level is.
And my
And
only
we
one.
have we still have the classroom library sets too, which have,
Yeah, all
and then
those.
we have more that we can share amongst the grade levels, so we can do a whole class with it, or we can do individual different levels and groups to kind of extend kids that need more too.
So everyone gets enough resources. Does the teacher get enough resources, or do you have to share, like within the grades? Like how does that work?
Level readers, we have plenty. And the classroom library says we have enough to do small groups, and if we wanted to combine all our second grade sets, we have enough for a whole group.
Gotcha.
So yes, we have enough.
And the only last question, I'm sorry, is this just the manpower, the ability to like, if we're introducing this to everybody next year, let's say, did you feel like it was like overwhelming for you guys to take on this like integration of more resources, or?
I didn't.
The word,
Yes, well, because it was what we basically had, like I said, like I didn't have to make all my spelling cards again, I didn't make all my vocabulary cards. Same skills, same vocabs and everything, so it's not total reinvent the wheel, it's just.
Page numbers are all correct and everything. Just making sure.
Yes. And that's the thing with the 2014, 2017 version. There were errors. This one, clean. And that's why you pilot. You have 12 teachers that are looking at through a critical lens and can give you the feedback. And we actually have a meeting, I think, next week or in 2 weeks set up, again, with the publisher and our consultant to kind of go through. Because the next step would be May 17th is our in-service day, and the morning is dedicated to, you're actually going to get, with obviously pending board approval, of course, getting their resource. They're going to get the first edition and the first volume of the teacher's edition on that 17th of May. They can have all summer long to start planning and collaborating. So each of the pilot teachers will be leading those discussions about just basically sharing the resources, and they'll have access to all that.
Do the students get workbooks to actually write in?
There's a sample. I don't know, do you have a sample?
So there's no photocopy craziness?
No.
Not.
No.
And it's
That alone, you guys, that's
Right.
fantastic.
Yes, we got it.
We'll be missing you.
worksheets and things, but they can write.
Right in
Right
there.
in, and yes, yeah, and this is where they're doing all that finding text evidence, circling, highlighting things, there is longer passages, but yeah, they write in there, so this will be consumable.
That's
And
awesome.
Joyce Amici's here because she served a couple roles with the Wonders a few years ago. She was a literacy coach, supporting the challenges of the previous years, and this is new, but now seeing it through a different lens. I don't know if you wanted to share it.
Right, no, everything that has been said here are the things that I'm hearing from the pilot teachers that are at Worcester. One of the other things though too, that I think Kelly was saying is about the assessments are much better with the new version. I don't know, Allison, if you're finding them to be better at the second grade level
Yes.
as well, but that's the biggest thing I think is that the assessments are more aligned to what the students are learning. Not that they aren't so much now, but they're very lengthy and long, and sometimes it seems like you were saying things just didn't really match. Where the assessments might have been testing one thing, but the unit and topic for that week was something different. I think that the reading, writing,
I think it's an assessment too, like we can
Right.
do things from here that so it's a more authentic assessment, not just, here's your test at the end.
Yes.
So we can actually pull evidence from here, even to show parent conferences or to just use, to match up our I can't statements for, to have actual evidence of what they did.
right? And that's, the teachers love this book. I don't, even if we do not vote to get this new Run of Wonders, which I know that we do, if they didn't get it, they would beg for this book now. Now that they've had it, they're not going back. Yeah, they really, really do enjoy using that writer companion book. And the teachers for the last several years have been saying that they need more writing. They need more writing embedded into their ELA block, and I think that helps to really provide for that.
Tara Strauss, I know you just came out of a place that has used it. I don't know if you want to share anything from your experience.
Well, just to echo what you were saying, I just stepped out of the 5th grade classroom where we were using the new Wonders program and seeing the exact same thing. The text evidence that they're gaining and being able to respond to the TDAs and the writing companion workbook. I mean, everything is authentic, and teaching them to think with a pencil in their hand, to read critically. It allows you to do that seamlessly, like you were saying, and I can just echo all that I've heard. I experienced the exact same thing. So,
Glad this is great. This is
Any other questions? And the rest of this I'll spread you, but really just goes through the different components. You can see the different levels that we have within the small group and guided reading group. And we know, especially late kindergarten, 1st grade, early 2nd grade, they fly through those levels. And that's really where you start seeing the rubber hit the pavement with our students. So, so at the end of the day, this is kind of what we're looking for with the assessment pieces, and everything's through online digital. It actually tier the kids for your small group instruction as well as your MTSS model. So that's the presentation in a nutshell.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to add, actually, it's sort of, for Andrea and I, it's good to hear.
I knew exactly when you were getting your.
I know, but you didn't. I was
I may have shed a few tears over Wonders, as did the teachers, I'm sure.
Oh, so I would look back on my last 6 years, and that's probably my worst vote. The impact of that vote is probably the worst. Voting for, so that's why I said that's why I can't speak for Andrea, but I know Ms. Hackett was advocating for delay. And ironically, if we would have kept with Wonders with the same program, I think it would have just been the bad thing a year later, probably, because it was the tool of Wonders and how they had numbers mixed up and everything in just a big mess. So it's very encouraging that we're able to sort of flip it completely on how bad it was to how supportive you guys seem to be. And we appreciate being supportive for the rest of your peers along the way, because that definitely helps. So, I guess it's more of a comment. I think it's great that Miss Amici, from a teacher on assignment, trying to band-aid that thing together 4 or 5 years ago, and running around trying to put something on keep it together. It's got to be really satisfying for you to see something turn around so quickly.
Yeah,
well, not quickly, but
it is. And
so successfully.
Right, and I think the main thing too was the authentic literature that we were missing in the anthology. I think that was probably the biggest hardship that the teachers felt right away, was that anthology. And it wasn't necessarily that it was about the book. It wasn't about the book itself. It was about the stories that were in the book and the literature that was there. And I think that just was part of the piece that was missing all along. And now there's a lot more there's more meat to the story. There's a lot more that you can do when you're reading an authentic literature. Like the stories that we have now are all contrived text. So they're, like we were saying before, the guided readers, they're all meant to teach spelling patterns and vocabulary words and different genres. But now we can do that plus read authentic literature and apply those skills to real books. So I think it's a great
Well, thank you all, and I guess we'll know if Pluto is a planet.
Oh, yes.
Can't tell in that one if it is or isn't. Is it really? It's sort of like right on the line, it says 8, but then there's like,
You know what, our ultimate goal for all students, no matter what age you are, is for them to grab their own book that they love, run upstairs to their room, under the covers with that flashlight. That way you know you have it, whatever age that might be. Some kids may never get that, but our goal is that's when you know you got something, and you have to rip that book out of their hand, go to bed. That love of reading, you never want to lose. So we hope that this will do it. And based on the results, I will tell you, I had 23 teachers that applied to be the pilot. I would have loved to have 23 teachers pilot, but I had to limit it to 12 because that's all we're getting. And it was just the research says about 2 teachers per grade level. There was a large interest, and I felt bad. Last year, Jen Brucker and I had to have conversations. Thank you. Maybe would you be interested in the math pilot down the road? But we love the fact that there's such a huge interest, and that tells you that people are looking for an upgrade or a change.
I mean, let's be honest, it's going to be a huge aspect of retention. So if you're comfortable with the curriculum that's being delivered and feel like it's something that is really having an impact and it's comfortable and it's the sort of the best that you think can be used, I think it will help from a retention perspective as well.
I just wanted to say, I mean, Paul pretty much took my comment, but I do have a question that goes with it, not to put you guys on the spot. First of all, thank you and to the both of you and the 10 other pilot teachers and the 2 of you for coming out tonight. And we did pilot last time and we did get input, but let's not go back there. But I am going to ask, is there any, when everybody's using this, or any red flags that we should be aware of, just in case? Because I did ask that last time and didn't get.
That's in the past.
Exactly. So I do, I mean, and nothing's perfect, I know that, and I'm shocked if you saw me chuckling, it's because my 7th graders were underlining text evidence today. Some are still struggling, even though they started in 2nd or, 5th. Any red flags that you can think of? I was happy my question was about the assessments. I know there was concern at the assessment.
It's not a red flag, but it's something that we need to get ahead of and be proactive of just what assessments we're doing.
Okay.
Because with the pilot teachers, we have tried all of them. So some of them are online on the ConnectEd website, and some of them are paper and pencil. And so I think we just need, I don't know if it's going to be pilot teachers or not, or Tara, welcome.
Everybody.
To actually have it set before school starts, like this is your assessment, 1st grade unit 1, this is your assessment, whatever, have everybody's ready to go, and whether they're going to be on Linkit or they're going to be paper or pencil, or they're going to be, we need to know what
Okay.
I was actually going to ask that question, like whether there's age or.
And I appreciate that, because one of the many conversations I had with educators, that was a big one.
Sure.
It was like, there was all these assessments, and some teachers thought they had to do them all, and they were saying, no, you don't have to do them all. Okay, well, which ones do you, so that, thank you, yes, because that was a big issue, because, elementary teachers, you guys are awesome. K-4 is always, K-5, are always the ones that want to do, and they were concerned that there was all these assessments, and which ones do you want me to do? And then so I appreciate that. I have one, because that kind of piggybacks on one comment I wrote down. Any other red flags while we're here? Because this is, we've got everybody here.
I think just to piggyback on the assessments, because we didn't have those uploaded to Linkit, I was asked to try to do it on the dashboard. And there's always things when you're using technology with those assessments that sometimes like they wouldn't be able to drag something, and so I always had the paper copy and then transfer it, just so I had both to avoid the frustration. But little things like that might be easily tweaked the technology at Wonders.
And not, you guys are the bosses, you know, you guys are in charge, and we're just here to, you know, ask the questions. And I know for me, we have it's actually similar. You know, we are taking what we have and getting the newer version. We decided to stick with what we have. And we're not doing the whole year quite before the year. It's almost like we're deciding about semester one. So I don't know if that's a way to go, is like tweaking and figuring out the assessments for semester one, so that we know what mistakes we may have chosen wrongly or whatever. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there because.
Well,
Yeah.
we just need them set in place before
Yes.
teachers get to them. That's
Okay.
all.
So working with Tara, Ricky, who's not here tonight, she's the supervisor continues, where she's basically our assessment. She does all the things in the background, so we work with her. The pilot teachers actually are the ones who's gonna help navigate us, because they live it every day. So you've lived through the assessments, so on the 16th, well, I think it's the 16th, whatever day we're meeting, we're gonna be, part of it is developing that assessment calendar. But let's face it, at the end of the day, the most important assessment is what happens in the classroom, not a paper pencil test. It's that small group reading instruction. That's where when you're having a student one-on-one, that's where you're finding out how they are as a reader. You know, no paper pencil test is gonna give you that. It's like quality information.
And that was the only other thing I have, and then I'm done, is you had specifically said, you know, that you can put your own spin on it still, and that I know is, for me, I was always worried about Methacton losing it. I mean, the teachers, I feel like through at least the K to 10 education I've been exposed to so far, you know, firsthand, not teaching to the test, and I feel like I love that about Methacton, that the teachers do put their unique spin on it, so you feel like this still enables you to do that as needed.
Yes.
So,
yes.
and what it is
Get
we
more
always.
information about kids from, like Matt said, reading with them, or what they do in the reading writing companion, than their test. I don't even use the test scores as much as I would all the other evidence and information, so, definitely.
So it really comes down to, you know, we always talk about the art and science of teaching. So the science of teaching is, here's the curriculum, here's the resource. The art of teaching is, and you bring it to life based on the students that are in front of you. This is a 6-year license, so, you know, we know that every year we have a different group of kids in front of us, so maybe we need more ELL readers, or maybe we need more Beyond the Word, because we have a really high group this year. So there's a lot of flexibility. We actually ordered extra level libraries for those grade levels who may have, because we only get 6, but let's say it's 7 or 8 kids who need that beyond level reader. So it's adaptable. But then the next year may only have 4 kids. So it's very fluid, and that's what we like about this, the flexibility within the program. But that art of teaching is where that creativity comes to life, and we don't want anyone to be a cookie cutter. Got to adhere to the curriculum, but how you bring it to life is totally up to you. So we thank you, and I thank you for the pilot teachers, on behalf of all the pilot teachers here, just like you.
Thank you,
So,
thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions about the program?
I just have one.
Yes.
How many pilot teachers did you get from 5th grade?
5th grade, Kelly, is it just you? Yeah, and then we had, good question about Skyler. So 6th grade is currently using collections. We have a 2-year digital license. Mrs. McGarvey is the 6th grade pilot. She loves it. But we're gonna phase Wonders in 2 years for 6th grade, because collections is like Pepsi Coke. It's pretty much the same thing. But we already bought that ahead of time. It was purchased before I even got here. So we're gonna let that license run through. We're bringing back the 6th grade recommendation. But she's on board. She echoed the same things that Kelly echoed, what they're seeing for ELA as well. So more to come on 6th grade. We're also going to be upgrading Wonder Works, which is a lot of our learning support teachers use. It's more of the apprentice level readers. It's one step below the approaching level. And there's some kids who need that. But again, the stories are the same. So when you go back and do your large group instruction, they're all seeing
They all
the
know
same
the story, they can hear more about it and learn whether they learn.
And
by
did you,
listening
sorry,
Nope.
did you say 6th grade's piloting that already?
6th grade already, they're piloting right now.
Okay.
So the recommendation is, once collections, and you can probably talk a little about the Super Zero, but collections, when that runs out, we're going to be moving forward with a 4-year license for Wonders, so that everyone in 6 years from now will be back on the same track. but it was prepaid, and it does meet the needs of the kids right now, so they're okay with just parking it for just a little bit longer. And that's the beauty of our curriculum review cycle. You're not locked in. You make changes based on standards change or the program needs to change.
I think, practice books available online
Yes.
also.
Yep. Everything is 100% digital. So, and the interactive textbook is, we're moving away from the your turn practice books into the reading, writing, and engineering. Thank you. What I'll be doing is I'll be moving it forward. You'll see it on the work session agenda in 2 weeks, and then we'll leave it out for 30 days for public review. It's not really a new program, but we always like to just let the public see the refreshed resources if they want to come in and look at the curriculum office.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Lizzie.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, next on the agenda is Dr. Farmer. Let me get my screen back on with a boost update.
Am I okay staying here too?
Yes.
Unless you want to stand, sing.
I like the casual conversation.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right, well, thanks for having me back. It seems like a lifetime ago, September, when I first brought this to the Ed Committee with the help of the elementary principals. Of course, we worked very well as a team together. But it's nice to come back, and I feel like I have a lot of good news to share about Boost, and it's just a brief presentation, but some good feelings, some good data, and feedback from the teachers, feedback from the kids, and we even got feedback from the parents, because we just recently had at all our elementary schools our MTSS Tier 3 meetings with parents as part of MTSS. So the principals and the specialists and the teachers meet with the parents. We go over the goals that we're setting for 6 weeks for the students. But it was funny, and you can jump in at any time, Joyce. But I can say at my parent meetings, I kept hearing, I love Boost. Thank you so much for Boost. This has been so great for my child. Confidence is going through the roof. And, it's really become a very clubby atmosphere. Joyce, we were talking about the kids like coming, they like the snacks. It's small group. Well,
It's
look,
always about the snacks. Like,
listen, if it takes food, but that's important to kids.
Yeah.
But it's I go into classrooms, they're having fun. They're learning, but it's such a cool environment, because you see their faces light up and they're looking forward to going to Boost. So that's been great to see. We recently, I'll go through the slides, but I just want to give you a background. We recently met as principals. We're planning a reward for the end of Boost for the kids with pizza and a Kona ice truck at each of the sites that we put in place, because you know what? They committed to this. They committed. They're doing the extra work, and we want to celebrate it with the teachers and the kids and have a little bit of fun with them. So.
Before you go on to your slides, I'm usually good with my acronyms. MTSS.
Boost is a boost, like we're giving them a boost.
I know, but NT.
Multi-tier.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I'm usually good. But
We should call it RTII, but now it's multi-tier
thank you.
system.
I was trying to come up with it. Thank you very much.
But yeah, we still thought Boost was an acronym too. I'm like, no, it's just.
I thought it was a boost. No, there's a lot of acronyms in it.
Yeah, and usually I get them, but
It's
I
just
just
Boost.
Yeah.
So this is just a reminder slide of what our purpose really was, and we wanted to give that after-school supports for the eligible students in tiers 2 and 3, our fragile learners, give them more practice with specific targeted instruction based on data, and we wanted to close the gaps. And we're seeing, and you'll see in the next slide, let's talk a little bit about participation. So across the buildings, the 4 elementary buildings, you can see participation. You can go back.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, sorry. But you can see, grade 1, we have 48 in ELA, 23 in math, and I'm not going to read the numbers there to you, but we have a pretty good participation. That was offered to our Tier 3, all of our Tier 3 students, all Tier 3 students. Not all parents chose to participate, but it was offered. And then if we found, we actually went into Tier 2 students too. So, and we're fun. And it's funny, you'll see, you can go to the next slide there, Dr. Walsh. But really a good participation by the students. But the data, we had mid-year data, right? So we just did our campus meetings, our data meetings, late January, early February. Got all the teachers together, the specialists, got all the players together, and we reviewed the data. Great data, you know, across the board, not just Boost, but the kids. We're seeing those gaps close. We're seeing, just from the beginning of your data to the benchmark data in the mid-year, we were so, you know, you can probably say for your building too. We all talked about it. Our buildings were just so happy to see the growth. But we wanted to compare the Boost students to their peers. And so when we looked at the data and the principals met, we really poured through the data. We looked, you know, it wouldn't be really fair to compare them to kids who are on level or above level, so we really compared them to students who are tier 2 and tier 3 but did not participate in Boost. So that was the comparison. So it was apples to apples. So on the top of there, on the ELA data, you can see comparatively the kids who are participating in Boost grew a half reading level more than their peers who are in tier 3 and tier 2. That doesn't seem exorbitant, like a big number, but it is. You know, on average, they all grew 2 to 3 levels, but there was that different growth for getting that extra support. As you see in math, we saw some real significant growth, 10% more on the mid-year Lincoln benchmark assessments than their tier 2 and tier 3 students who are non-Boost participants. So the last sentence here, this is also, so great data, great growth. The last one's important too. So it's flexible, right? It's flexible, and when we say flexible participation, we look at the data, and if you could go to the next slide, Dr. Walsh, and I'll bump down to the third one down there. It says principals have recently graduated and added students to Boost based on data collected from the mid-year benchmark process. And we like calling it graduate, you know, and it was a celebration. Like, it was, I saw it personally with the kids who lit up, and the teachers were sharing me, you know, they were successful, they did this. But we also saw there's some other kids who could benefit mid-year to, you know, we'll go until April 5th, so we added a few students too, more than a few for those slots. So let me go back to the top. So one of the things with Alexia, which is thanks, Dr. Walsh and Jen Brucker actually talked to me about Alexia, and I looked into it, and it really has been great for the kids. For ELA, they take a self-assessment. It slots them into a curriculum that's really geared at their level. It's very gamey and arcadey when they're on the computer and they're using it, but they like it. You know, and I've actually subbed in, you probably subbed in Boost classes too. But I've seen the kids with it in action if the teacher was out, and they like it, they interact with it, very much like also with the reflex math, which I'll talk about in a minute, but they enjoy it, you know, but it's something that not only do they enjoy participating on the computer, but the teachers, we wanted to really get them professional development so that they were more comfortable with Lexia. So we worked and we got the Lexia as part of the order. We got the Lexia people to provide some PD for our teachers and the principals. We met for an hour and they went through just really the data analysis, like looking at the data in Lexia, pulling out lessons, because based on the data that you're seeing for the students, you can actually pull out lessons. You can look at the kids and say, well, these 3 kids really aren't doing that well with their decoding, whereas these 3 kids really could use a bump in comprehension. So the teacher then can go and print out lessons specifically for decoding and pull those students off the computer and do a small group. So it's not just all computers, they're pulling kids back based on data and giving them instruction, small group instruction for that. So that PD was wonderful because the teachers got to dig into it, the presenter was wonderful, and you were part of it too. We learned so much, the certificates, how to get the kids love the certificates. When they reach a certain level, they get a certificate, celebrating their growth. So that was wonderful. Really, and the other thing we learned from that was, remember we learned that they need more time on the Lexia. So even though they're only meeting once a week for ELA, so we encouraged during our mid-year meetings, we said it's okay for the kids to get on during the day. You know, if you're pulling a guided reading group here as a teacher, then you can have your tier 3 students who are part of Boost, they can be working on Lexia. So getting more time, because it was really stressed by the Lexia people that you gotta get them on. you know, and we also encourage at home too, but we have them, you know, a captive audience in school, so that was a good thing to learn. So we're gonna really, a little bit about the Reflex. Reflex is something that we use grades 2 to 4 already. We use that for math, for the fact fluency, for the, you know, foundational skills of math. So in the math classrooms, they're getting the Reflex, but they're also getting more practice on the I can statements that they're currently working on. So this is something a teacher, 4th grade teacher shared with me. Said, Kelly, it's so great to hear the kids come in and they're confident. They've been exposed to something. They never had that. They were always quiet in the classroom because maybe they didn't know it, but because they were in Boost, they got more exposure. They feel more confident in the classroom, the math classroom. So principals, we're going to continue to collect data on the Boost students, and again at the end of the year, we'll have more Lexia data at that time. So we want to pour through that data also. And then I mentioned the end of the Boost year celebration, which the kids, I announced it in my classrooms, and they're, woo! You know, a celebration. Gives them something to work towards. You know, they would come anyway, but we felt it was important to celebrate their commitment. So.
Question, not to be the negative Nelly in the group. Were there any students or parents that just said, you know what, thanks, but we're not going to participate?
There's one or two
they started
students
to
who
participate and realized, you know what, we just don't.
Sure, I'm not going to sit here and say, but not very minimal.
Okay.
Very good. There's always, you know, some kids just want to go home and play, you know, or they're into sports, or they wanted to join another club. That's okay. We have plenty of participants that were able to, you know, to fill this slots, but very minimal.
And then I know we're going to talk about summer school later, but there was talk of this continuing in the summer. Is that for later? Okay.
Preview to come, but yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for.
And just to springboard off of what Dr. Harmer was talking about, the beauty about Lexi is that kids can log in at home. It's actually encouraged that they get that hour a week, so if they miss it, or if there's a holiday, snow day, whatever it might be, they can still do that. And it's so adaptable where if the students are struggling, it dials back. If they're tackling the questions easier, it ratchets it up to the next level. So it really is an independent program that truly is customized for each student. It really is. And that's so whether we continue it through the spring, summer, they can work on it independently. And like you said, they're hooked in because it's very attractive. Their interface is.
It's very gamey, but it gives very specific data to the teacher too. That's what I really like.
Because if you're doing an after-school program, you only have this much. You're not a teacher that's with them all day long.
Right.
You know, to really
You're not shooting in the
focus
dark.
targeted time to work with those kids.
It's giving you the roadmap to say how can I also help in my small group instruction to support what they're struggling on.
Because again, it supports the core and more. They're getting access to the core, and then they're getting more of it. And that's really what the Boost does, is it prevents that regression and keeps the kids moving, and just gets them more access to the core.
So Dr. Farmer, is this size the right size? Because you said if certain parents didn't want to participate, there was other students that could fill the gap. So is there talk about possibly expand? I think if I recall, they do Tuesday, Thursday, or something like that. With having another teacher do Monday, Wednesday, is that something that you guys are going to possibly put in a request for next year, or is there enough demand? Because I think you were talking tier 2 and tier 3, right, that we're not capturing all the kids.
We're off. I think to answer your question, I do think this is the right size. I mean,
Okay.
That would be my opinion, Joyce. You can.
I would agree.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean,
All right. Good. That's what because that's the time to ask. The time for asking for it to be expanded.
And the beauty of this is not that you're signing homework, but Lexia they can do independently, and Reflex Math they can do independently. So you can encourage students, okay, while you're meeting with us on Tuesday, Thursday, we'd like to see you doing it one other day during the week at home, or over the weekend, because actually you can log in through the data manager and see how often kids are logging in outside of the school day. And you really want to encourage it. Like Lexia is 60, they're requesting 60 minutes to get true data. So obviously there is going to be an independent piece at home.
My only comment is I really love how you're talking about it. I feel like the excitement, and I seen you like really knowing both of you as principals, like seeing the success in the students and knowing that this program has brought some confidence and brought their skills up and you're able to see it is fantastic. So I appreciate you guys being leaders to put this in. And I think, yeah, if we're able to, any feedback you're able to continue, like the Lexis or the reflex math or whatever it is, that success that you found within the program would be great. But I think it's, we needed to build our kids' confidence in learning again, and you guys did that. So I just.
Well, to be clear, we didn't do that.
No,
Teachers
the
did.
teachers did, but the
Because
fact
I'm
that
gonna call
you
the credit
guys,
to them.
the fact that you guys, you're aware of where that was and what the teachers' feedback.
And we work well as a team. We're always
Yeah, we do.
talking. The
Yeah.
four of us are just always talking and gotten great feedback.
But to see success where kids were struggling after 2 years is.
And I do have to say too, like having the bus really helped too. The transportation that's provided by the district was really key in allowing a lot of our families to get to the Boost program and then get home safely. So I think that was a huge piece of this too. And I was actually really surprised by our math scores. I feel like, you know, our reading scores increased, but the math really just sort of blew up for these tier 2 and tier 3 kiddos. And you know, I just do want to say thank you to Dr. Harmer because he really did spearhead this whole, you know, idea, and he's done a great job with it. So thank you.
Yeah, I know this is day one for me, and I'm just hearing about the Boost. But there are neighboring districts that are holding after-school programs. But like my heart is like so happy right now, just hearing about this level of principal engagement and enthusiasm and support. Soup to nuts, and that's not happening everywhere, even though many places are having after-school programs. So kudos to you. Just
Thank you.
really great.
And I do think one of the key aspects of it, you brought it up, is the transportation, right? That
That's
helps a
key.
lot
Yeah.
because,
I'm glad you brought that.
I mean, when you think about it, even just coming to the schools to pick up can get a little bit hectic and it's hard for some families. So I think that was critical for us to have that. I did have a couple of questions.
Sure.
As far as Lexia, because I asked before and I don't remember, is there a cutoff time or days, like, if a kid is goes to bed late and they're up at 10 o'clock and they wanna get off, is there a cutoff time? Because I know for some
don't think so.
programs, so we don't have
I don't think so. I think you could set it, I believe, if you went into the admin management, but I think it's open. I think my kids at 2 o'clock in the morning doing that.
I'm
Working
not
on
working.
it, working on their Lexia.
I want them to be able to.
I was watching an infomercial, I
Look,
guess.
if they're up at 9
curious.
o'clock and they wanna read, I want them to be able to, but I've heard, and I can't remember exactly which one, but I've heard some of them have.
Flash Learn, is it?
Yeah,
Brain
right?
pop was
Yeah,
cut
one,
off.
I think it's
I was just curious, cause I didn't know what your objection, I wanted to know your objection.
There's a lot of models.
Yeah.
I don't wanna
Okay, John, you're done.
But the fact that you're worried about your kids working.
That's important because there's times that I've heard kids say, I wanna get on, I can't get on because the
Right.
program is
Because
not
of lockdowns.
available on
I
the
think it's Flash
weekend.
Learns.
Okay, so
I
maybe
think
that's
it's an Epic
Yeah.
books.
Yeah, some of
Okay,
them.
yeah, Epic, that's what I,
Yeah,
thank
if you're
you.
not in school hours, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I think Epic that's the company, it's not.
It's not
Right,
us,
yeah,
it's
the
just-
company says that with the free subscription, yeah.
Good point,
I just
Sarah.
wanna make sure. And then in reference to, I know we say it's flexible, right? The parents can opt their kids in or opt out. But the kids that we identify that parents choose to opt out, have we checked to see if there's a, if they have a rationale, maybe they say, those days don't work for me or
Well,
something like
it's a good thing, back to the MTSS, when we had those original meetings, we talked about it. So everything, we did explore it,
Okay.
and many of them, sometimes it was just a commitment for something else, or sometimes it was just a family decision, but we were able to have those conversations. So it's not like we just sent out an invitation, we had personal conversations. But Brooke, can I just jump back to the bus? One more thing, I do love the bus, because I'll tell you what, I've done this for 16 years after school programming. If you have the bus, you get the kids you need, right? And if the bus is taken away, you're not gonna get all the kids you need, just because some of your families just won't have that transportation.
Yeah. And if a family were to opt out for whatever reason, but we know that maybe the kids will benefit, right? Just from what you showed, the kids are learning a lot and gaining a lot. I think you said last time Lexia was only available to the kids in the Boost program, right? Did that change or?
So now we're actually offering it to, so we have extra licenses.
Right.
So we went through and we looked at our tier 2 and our tier 3 kiddos that were not in Boost, and we added them to Lexia so that when we go to our child study meetings and our tier 3 meetings, we can suggest Lexia as a strategy at home to help boost the reading.
Yeah, we want to use it, you know.
Right.
So that also was a big
Yes.
talking point.
Right,
It
it was. And then something that, like an example of that was, I had a first grade student who was it was just the day was too long with booze, was coming home in tears. But then we said, but you know, at home they can still go on Lexia if you want. And the parents were like, oh, that's great, we can go on it when we get home, and we'll do that too. So it is nice that they can have the option to go on at home or on the weekends if they want to.
Yeah, and that was all. I just figured if we have the opportunity to provide it for those that are not able to make it for one reason or the other, it's just helpful for that to happen. So yeah, thank you. And I guess, it goes back, because what I was gonna ask was plans for continuing the program. And so far, we have plans to continue it into, I know you said summer is coming, so we're not more to come, but for the next school year, we plan to continue this program.
That's finance. Finance, we'll talk about that.
If you're asking me.
That we budgeted for Boost through the ESSER 3 grant. So this year is funded through ESSER 3. It included this year and next year, as well as the transportation factor was all factored into that grant.
I love you and the grants.
It's in there. The other piece I just worked on last week was trying to increase the funding to get more licenses for Lexia through the ESSER 3 grant funding. There's a 7% set aside, and we went in and did some program modifications to try and increase that.
And I can tell you, it's not only research-based, because if you want to get a program that's research-based, has empirical evidence behind it, it truly is, Lexia is. I will sing it from the rooftops that I think it's one of the best programs out there for kids. Because of the adaptability and the digital access. It really is. I mean, I'm probably preaching the choir of it, but it just really top-notch stuff. All right, thank you, Dr. Brown.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
You get to leave.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to advocate for everybody to, you know, if they sure.
All right, next up is Mrs. Horla with the secondary curriculum textbook update.
So I have quite a bit to read to you, so I'm going to send somebody these notes.
Not me.
Andrea, I know, it's not exciting. So I will send these your way so you don't have to worry about taking notes. We have 3 new courses starting at Methacton High School next fall, and as such have 3 new planned course documents that will come up for review, similar to Wonders. You'll see those planned course documents on the agenda in March, but then they won't be voted on until April. So I thought it would be fun for you to hear what it says in the program planning guide, you know, just in case you haven't cuddled up and read that very, very large document. Because I do think the amazing thing about...
I do have it printed, just so you know.
I always print my child's too, it just works better like that, but I always think it's amazing the things that we get to offer our students, you know, and the options that we get to offer them. And the first one is hydroponic farming, which is a new course at Methacton High School thanks to a generous grant from the Methacton Education Foundation. We'll offer our students the innovative opportunity to research, grow, and observe the hydroponic farm. This is our description in the planning guide. Are you interested in learning how to grow plants with only water and nutrients without soil? Explore Methacton's own hydroponic farm by using advanced vertical farming techniques. Learn the positives and negatives to all types of farming and their effects on the environment, biodiversity, and society. Students will complete labs in the classroom while also having hands-on experience working in the hydroponic farm. This course is designed to cover how plants can be grown hydroponically, how the scientific method is not a linear process, and how hydroponic farming has benefits to society. Emphasis will be placed on business, marketing, computer science, and mathematics. The plan course document highlights units of studies that explore scientific method through the lens of hydroponic farming. They analyze the benefit of hydroponic farming in society, and it compares hydroponic and traditional farming. Students will be able to examine and present data, design experiments, and participate in initiatives related to farming and community projects. So that will be our first document that you'll see. The next is the Forensics Lab. Forensics Lab is also a new course thanks to a generous grant from the Methacton Education Foundation. This course will offer students the unique opportunities to practice their investigative skills. It's quite popular from what I understand so far. Here's the description in the book. The forensics course will turn the students into CSI investigators as they navigate through a simulated whodunit scenario. Through chemical analysis of multiple pieces of evidence left at the scene, students will meticulously build a case and will determine which one of the suspects is the perpetrator. Activities will include analysis of handwriting and fingerprints, fiber and hair samples, trace DNA and residue powders, and DNA electrophoresis. The course will also include organic chemistry labs, including fractional distillation to identify contents in a mystery mixture, melting points of different compounds, and infrared spectroscopy to analyze counterfeit printing. Sounds pretty cool, right? The planned course document highlights units of study in all of these different areas, as well as the hands-on learning experiences through labs and simulations that are the primary learning experiences for the course. Data collection and analysis and presentation of findings will also be integral to components of the course. We're at the point right now where we're ordering the supplies for this course through the grant funding, and I feel like we're on the triple check and it's very interesting, the supplies that you need to order for this course. So really exciting opportunity. Our third course is English 12 Literacy Connections. This is a course that we approved in October. The English 12 Literacy Connections focuses on providing English instruction to prepare students for their post-secondary path and will align to college and career readiness objectives in addition to the Pennsylvania standards in ELA for grade 12. The class will be student-centered and self-directed. The goal of the course is for each student to master ELA standards, reading, writing, speaking, and listening through an exploration of an area that's personally valuable to them. So our working title of this approval was actually English 12 Career Connections. So you'll see it in the document as English 12 Literacy Connections. The program planning guide states a contemporary English course designed to meet student needs through experiential learning opportunities and high academic standards in the areas of reading, writing, speaking, and listening. In addition to course objectives, students will create their own targeted learning goals based on their assessment data and interests. To meet these objectives, students will utilize resources including nonfiction, classic, or contemporary literature, community action projects, and various forms of pre-career readiness activities. The course will align with all 12th grade standards. The planned course document actually highlights these units of study: narrative career writing pathways research, fiction and nonfiction reading, career portfolios, writing for business, and speaking and listening. Students will engage in the writing process, literature circles, research and presentation skills, and activities to engage their reading comprehension skills. So we're excited again to offer this opportunity to a group of students as well. So that is our new curriculum courses. So do you have questions about those?
Just quick, real quick. Is the first two hydroponic and the forensics, are those that the half a year class?
They are.
And then the other is a full year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I thought so. I just wanted to double check. Thank you.
They are.
Just a plug for that too, the hydroponic department, it's hard to say that, almost 8 o'clock at night, is one of a kind. Like, this is truly puts us on the map, because no other place has it. It's really unique, and it's because of the foundation. And there's a lot of supplies that go with it. Same thing with the forensics, CS. I mean, number one shows out there are these CSI investigation, detective skills. It really is state of the art for our science department. Wow.
I also wanted to give you all some insight into some work that's going to be going on in summer of 2022, not something that you'll see appear on a board agenda. We are in stage 2 of the curriculum review cycle for FCS, business, and tech ed. So we're at the point now we'll be pulling together kind of an action committee with our department coordinators to really chart the course forward with these subject areas so that we can say, okay, well, what are our short-term goals and what are our longer-term goals for what our courses are going to look like, what our programming is going to look like. An example of that, one of the things that kind of came back to us with FCS was some interest in reviving classes like international cuisine and interior design, which were previous classes that were dropped from the program planning guide. So as part of of our procedure. If that does become part of our plan, you would see them come back in October. So we have those initial meetings going on in March. We're going to engage the department coordinators both at the 7-8 level and 9 through 12 level. Myself, Dr. Walsh, Mr. Brannick, we're all going to get together and really try to look short-term, long-term, and really develop a vision for that program. So
Maybe because of if it's a low enrollment, maybe something we offer every other year. So these kids in the high school have an opportunity, 9th grade, 10th grade, what have you. So work on those areas.
And then I do have one textbook that will be up for approval. Again, it is a textbook that will appear on the agenda in March, but then be up for approval in April. It is Magruder's American Government, published by Savas. It is for American government and politics at the academic level in grade 12. So that you're aware as a background, a committee of 3 department members reviewed 3 different resources for use in the 12th grade American Government and Politics course. The review included exploration of the resources as well as meetings with company representatives for product demonstration. This resource offers an interactive online textbook. It supports differentiation to support student learning through scaffolding and extension opportunities. The resource will integrate with Google Classroom. Information is presented in an academic manner, and the resource seeks to aid students in investigating, in acquiring knowledge and skills, synthesizing, practicing knowledge and skills, and demonstrating, showing their own understanding of topics, as well as connecting, making meaning personal for them on the different topics. Purchase of this resource has been included in the preliminary 22-23 budget. And it's a replacement text. And that's the copy, so we will have that on display for the month.
Okay, and that is a, I know you said academic grade 12, but it's not an elective, like kids have to take.
Correct.
If they're
correct.
Okay.
When you say it's a replacement, what was it, what does that mean? That was similar?
There was an existing text, but it's out of date, so it's. Yeah,
But not the same.
Not the same text, no. It is, and I can tell you the name of the previous text.
It's replacing U.S. Government, Democracy, and Action, 2008 copyright.
They have to do a whole new curriculum writing and test.
We will actually, as part of the curriculum review, you'll see in April the curriculum review for this course was completed last summer, so the document will be up for approval for use in the coming year. Yeah.
And this will, I think this is what we talked about. It's a 6-year. All the textbooks now come with a 6-year digital license. And if you choose to extend it, it's usually a year by year case.
And the quote for this includes hard copies of the books as well as digital access.
And Savas used to be called Pearson. They kind of took over for them. Pearson was the big one.
Okay. And this is going to be on review for 30 days
Yes.
and then vote for
In April.
Yeah.
Vote on
To the
it.
vote.
Yes. And we do that because our in-service is May 17th. So we want to get it in April so that once it's approved, they can just get the resource in their hands to start exploring and planning for the following year.
And you're up again.
Yeah,
There's a
Mrs.
lot.
Gorlish here.
Yeah, sorry. So, I'm giving you a little update on our summer reading program at the high school. We've traditionally done a One Book, One School initiative, and we have gone kind of round and round about what we wanted to do in the coming year. So throughout this school year, we've given consideration to One Book, One School, and it really has become an annual activity for the high school. The goal of the program is to really develop a sense of school unity through the use of literature. That's the ultimate goal of this. So students, staff, and families read a common novel, and then that reading serves as a basis for classroom discussion and different activities around the school. So giving this some thought, the One Book, One School Committee this year has proposed utilizing a previously selected approved title that was actually read in the 18-19 school year. It's called I Will Always Write Back by Caitlin Alafranca and Martin Gonta with Liz Welch. It is a nonfiction novel. It centers on the hope and power of friendship. Caitlin and Martin's dual pen pal autobiography spans the 6 years of their friendship between Lansdale, Pennsylvania, and Zimbabwe. The story is told in the first person, with chapters alternating between Caitlin and Martin's points of view, and unfolds as the two form, and I quote, forge a life-altering friendship despite significant cultural, economic, and geographical differences. While reading the common novel as part of One Book, One School, it will be used in classrooms as the year starts as prompts for discussion, literature analysis, and writing. The One Book, One School Committee is really invested in using the theme of kindness that's present in this book as a theme for planning events at the high school. to target positive building culture and community. So the committee is continuing to develop their ideas, and we'll share out our ideas and plans.
And I assume there's only one, like the book from last summer had an adult and a.
There's only one version. It is actually a pretty younger, like it's friendly to younger, even younger audiences. I say it's like more of a 13, 14.
And I actually love the idea of revisiting a book, because we don't do that enough. It's always the newer, the brighter, and sometimes not reinventing the wheel is often the best.
Sometimes it's nice to refine what you have.
Yes,
right?
yes, I love that.
So we think it will be a good message, and it'll be a positive start to the school year to kick off that whole sense of community building that you want in the school. So that gives you a little bit of an update of what's going on there.
I have a question. Who sits on the One Book, One School committee?
So our One Book, One School committee is a volunteer group at the high school. It's led by our librarian, Kara Rudenberg. So Dr. Gravenese is involved. Kara came and talked with both Dr. Gravenese and I. So she has a committee of teachers who sit on that. We do actually have a procedure that was developed by previous administration for selection of the One Book, One School book. That kind of follows lockstep how it will roll when we select a new book. So that this was a previous.
And we don't vote on it. You're just sharing it.
Yeah, just sharing that. Yeah,
Which
so that we have an internal process
Awesome.
to go out. It's not just a
No, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Not everything we want to know about has to be voted. So
That's
we're
what I
asked.
figured.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna look at this in the
I know,
curriculum
I'm
office,
there.
so I don't want anyone saying, oh, she just.
It's a deep read.
I'll look at it deeply. Absolutely.
Are you gonna have an online version of that? I know.
To have access to? I can check.
Can we have access to that?
Yeah, check.
Yeah, I think they limited that because obviously.
Let me see if I
But
can.
there might be
I know
a
you
free
said that
version.
last time, yeah. I'm just wondering because I think, was it last year, but we were in the midst of everything and some people asked if it was possible for them to review it
Yeah.
online
I'll
because,
check.
The publisher's created about giving a limited release.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
like a login might be here for 7 days or something.
Right,
That's
yes. I know we're using like a temporary login right now
Try
for
to get
next
it.
year, so if sometimes a couple of us will be on it and they'll like, okay, you get off of it, so I can do some work with it, which is understandable. Okay.
And guess who's up next?
It's gotta be Dr. Inkstead.
No, it's
it's Dr.
It's
Corliss.
Corliss.
Sorry.
That's my thing again.
All right, I'm really,
And then I'm going to
I'm
take a
passing
break.
the test
I know.
today.
So we recently had our professional development day on February 18th. We held that as a virtual in-service day where our staff had a wide variety of menu choices to select from on the 18th. So I just wanted to share some of the feedback. Each of the sessions had a Google Form attendance sheet, and we asked for any comments they wanted to share. You didn't have to share comments, but you could. So I thought you would like to hear some of the comments. About the executive functioning microlearning through Jolt EDU. I love that this microlearning opportunity actually had differentiated choices during the lesson. So often we're told to differentiate and then all of our PD sessions are straight lectures. This session had a plethora of different options like video, articles, and exploring various apps. Then about Dr. Graciela Slezerzansky-Pope presented on supporting transgender and gender expansive youth. This was amazing, and I would like to have more training on this topic and perhaps even offer sessions where parents and community members, our kids, need support. From Caring for the Caretaker, this presentation was one of the most relevant sessions I've ever attended. I particularly love the neuroscience research and explanation of how things acted and interacted in the brain. Would definitely be interested in more sessions with the presenter. From a teacher-led session on skills-based assessments, I will find different ways to give students practice with data analysis and try to include those skill sets in my assessments, be it on an exam, a do now, a classwork, etc. On our science grade 5, I'm excited to explore the different resources Dave Bauman provided for us. Great stuff. From a session with our tech integrators, no questions, but loved all the resources highlighted. Can't wait to try infographics and interactive stories. From mindfulness and yoga in the classroom, this was a great session, very informative, and I'm definitely going to use these strategies in the classroom. My students and me will both benefit from the anxiety-reducing exercises. Thank you. And from our session on the Center for Loss and Bereavement, thank you for this information. I didn't know we had such a great local resource. I'm sure our school counselors did, but now I feel like I could point families in the right direction if needed. Following this session, I feel more prepared and more comfortable with the possibility of supporting grieving students. The slide sharing actual student perspectives about how they want people to approach them provided great insight. So it was really a great opportunity for our staff to be able to select some sessions that were of interest to them in the morning, so which I think is always an important thing to do in professional development. We were really appreciative of all of our presenters. We had a number of presenters from within the teaching staff, from within our administrative team, and a number of outside presenters. So I feel like it was a worthwhile opportunity for everyone.
If I can echo that, the turnout was great, the attendance was fantastic, and having an opportunity for professional development by teachers, by colleagues, for colleagues, is just powerful. And so there was a rich discussion in the morning, and giving them, you saw the menu, it was great, and it was homegrown, it was authentic. So, kudos, we plan to replicate that again for future professional
It
development.
was very thorough.
Right. Were there any sessions, I know from my experience, if they cap out at 25 and they were only offered twice, were there some that
there were only a
some
few that were offered, that were capped. And I don't really think, I think we maybe had, I think it might have been caring for the caretaker cat. So there were only a few that really, so it really, we were monitoring that and trying to add, and we were, looking at the Jolt EDU. There were a couple of sessions that we're targeting in on some feedback, because there are things that we may want to try again in the future to really get some input from people who participated in them, to say, hey, tell me a little bit more about your experience. Was this worthwhile? What did you like? What didn't you like? Because that helps us with, with our planning in the future.
And we asked for presenters if they had handouts.
Yes.
So if you couldn't attend something, you at least have access
So
to
we'll be
handouts.
building out our professional development site. There are some sessions that won't provide those handouts, particularly if you pay for them. They want you to pay again, so that you're, so we are building that up.
know whose umbrella this would fall under, but the one comment about this would be good for parents. Even if it was only 5 or 10 parents, if there is some availability when that
More to come.
Oh,
Say it's a
okay.
preview.
All right, well, I will just jump in
Everything's
on
working
now
out.
and say, I know someone on a wait list 5 months to get an appointment with the transgender counselor at CHOP, because they just don't have enough. So, anyway, all right, I won't cut
Steal
Ms.
her
Sporla
thunder.
off or
I'm
jump
good.
ahead, but I think it's
Yeah.
finally Dr. Angsted's
It is.
turn.
Well, yeah, just as a follow-up to that too is, so again, thank you for approving the March 31st for K through 8, because 9 through 12 is in April 22nd, I think your date is. But having some PD to continue these discussions at the building level. So this will be principal-based in-service on March 31st. May 17th is district-based, we'll have more information on that to come. And then, yeah, it's flying by. Fasten your seatbelt.
I know we had an extensive menu of offerings, but that were there any that
Didn't run?
Yeah.
We only had a couple that didn't run. That just didn't, they only had like 1 or 2. So we asked, I was monitoring that so that a couple days before I could say, hey, we'd really love, can you please select another one? Because you'll just get more out of it if you're, in a larger group.
So just a few.
Yeah, just a few. It really wasn't anything.
Alright, sure. So this year, the Pupil Services Office, we've been truly working on trying to partner with Special Education Alliance to do some just presentations and gatherings with some of their members. The ability to do things virtually has really increased participation and allowed us to offer things a little more quickly than trying to get things up, get rooms set up, all that stuff. So we have been doing a few with the SEA. We've already held 2. There's one coming up. I know Sandy's in the audience. We have one coming up on March, what's the date? 17th on transition planning for students. And then there will be one more with the SEA. Many families have been participating, our community members, teachers have been participating in the Shelley Moore trainings that have been provided by the MCIU, and they have been very fascinating on Wednesday nights, and it's interesting to see how parents are coming out, teachers are coming out, and really participating in these virtual opportunities. So we wanted to continue that before the end of the year and pick up a few more topics for parents and put some offerings out there. So I did connect with Tom Stecker and Associates, who provided the caring for the caregiver session, and see if he could provide us with 3 sessions for parents that are currently scheduled for March 23rd, April 6th, and April 27th. They will be an hour in length, and they will focus on social emotional wellness, how to handle stress, anxiety, and depression, and coming back and rebuilding and making connections from the pandemic. And then the last one is really about building a community and the importance of community, friendships, maintaining healthy relationships, really kind of tying that together. Another one that I'm currently working on is working with Springfield Psychological, Central Behavioral Health, and Carson Valley Children's Aid, which is our staff liaison. Back in 2018-19, we did a mental health panel here in this room, actually, and we invited parents out to not only hear information about when do you know if your child has mental health needs or needs some additional resources, but then we linked them to the community resources. So really being able to provide that again, but virtually, so that more parents could hopefully participate. And then I would also like to follow up with Graciela, who did our transgender and gender awareness training. I met Graciela back in 2015, and I never forgot her presentation. And it was very powerful at that time with People Services, and she had come out to speak to the administrative team last summer, and then we've been following up with her. So really trying to have her do something for our parents and just making an offering available for families that need that type of support. So trying to lock them in for May, Carson Valley and Graciela, but still in the planning stages.
Can you do me a favor, not the planning stages one, but the Tom Stecker, I didn't get all those dates, if you can just.
And Amanda and I will be working together to kind of utilize other ways of announcing those trainings, connecting with home and school, if we can have them publicize that as well.
And speaking of just communicating, et cetera, I did have an informal conversation with Ms. Katz just about the fact that a lot of the SEA volunteers are high school parents, because the high school parents have a little more time, you know. So if just Mrs. Mangano and Ms. Falston can kind of keep in the back of their mind any, you know, when they're talking to parents, just talking up the SEA when they're in, you know, in meetings or what have you.
The January, I think it was January, we did a session, Dr. Mangano and I presented on SOAR and the REACH program. Erica Thompson will be working with the transition plans for March. And all the supervisors and I presented back in October. I don't know, it feels like a while ago, back in October, just about special education programming, support services in general, and handling things like that. But now we want to make it open to more people and make sure we're targeting some of the topics. Mental health is definitely still an area of concern for many of our families and our students, and we wanted to try and bring more in on that.
And then this is just saving me an email, so I apologize. I was going to email, before the pandemic, we were going to have that review, the guidance review from the state company, not company, but the state, the association. Are we able to reschedule
They're
that?
still doing virtual.
They're still doing virtual.
So their conference they just announced would be virtual again.
Okay. Okay. So I know that's on your list. I just wanted to, it saved me an email, say it here, that as long as it's still on our list and as soon as we can.
We're actually due to still receive our award that we received the state award for the REACH program in 2020, but nobody really knows that because they still have our plaque.
Right, and yeah, we're almost there, I'm sure, that with the association, but if that, thank you for updating us.
And just to clarify, thank you for the parent. I think the engagement part is really key, and I definitely appreciate that. Just to be clear, that's for all parents.
That's correct.
Right? And we're gonna blast it and try to. So what would you said 1 hour sessions on 3 different days?
Yeah.
Right. Are they?
You do not have to attend them all, you can come, they don't.
It's a different subject each?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And what about question and answer, or is there how you gonna do it?
They're actually very interactive, so people will go into breakout rooms. Tom Stecker will set up all the old Zoom links, and they provide all that. People will pre-register, and then it's very hands-on and interactive sessions.
Just curious.
Yeah.
On the, because I've only been able to, I haven't been able to go back and listen to the previous show once, but I did see that. I watched the last week. How many people are on those things?
Well,
Hundreds.
and from
Like
the SMU, it's across the world.
Yeah, I
Like
know,
people
it's
from
like half of
Japan
Canada
signed
is
up.
on there.
Yes, yes.
460. Yeah, I think it was 460.
Really well.
Yeah, and she's so well respected. I mean, she is like the guru. People are like, oh, Shelly, you want Shelly Moore? Yes.
Yeah. It's definitely a different experience too. So.
And not to, sorry, you made me think of another question. I just, out of curiosity, is Tom Stecker doing it or one of his associates? They're all great, I'm just curious.
Stecker is doing it along with Abby Morgan.
Tom's still in the mix.
Oh my gosh, that man, when's he gonna retire? Not in a bad way, like he is like the man, all right.
So, but we just thought it was important to put some offerings out there. And when we did that panel back in 1819, we had pre-registration, and there were like 30 some people that said they were coming, and that night like 12 came out. But like you said earlier, there are 3 people that still say thank you so much.
Right,
for doing
absolutely.
it,"
Who
because
cares?
It helps their child. And so just being able to put the offerings out there and being able to do something through that virtual community has been very helpful.
And anything they learned, they might have shared with someone else.
Are you planning to repeat this calendar, like you said, with all the special ed, talking about offerings, like do that again next year at the same time?
That will depend on the SCA, if you want us back.
We'll see what Pat has to say.
That's great.
Thank you for doing that.
Summer school. Oh,
Say
look
it
at
again.
that.
Yeah, but say it. I told you it'd be coming up. All right, so Mrs. Well and I've had ongoing conversations about what we think summer school would look like this year. Not to be confused with ESY. So the school year that's a whole different realm. But so we're looking at extending the Boost program in through the summertime. So we have those Lexia licenses. We have the Reflex licenses. Start September 1. They're good through August 31st, and we redo them. So we're looking at doing that for students identified K through 5. We're also looking at some opportunities for stretch learning and enrichment opportunities, looking for some online resources that parents can use for students who just need stretch to keep their reading going. So working with some of the reading specialists, now that Mrs. Strauss is here, she may be able to work through the IU. The IU's been a great resource for us and providing us some links. Amber Malloy, the literacy specialist at the IU. So we're going to be putting something together for parents. But the Boost program, as Dr. Harm said, will just be extended right through the summer. Get kids on that Lexia, get kids on the Reflex. We're actually introducing Frax Math, which is all about fractions in grades 3 and above. We all know fractions is the segue gatekeeper, if you will, to pre-algebra and algebra. So we're getting a solid foundation. Reflex Math does it with fluency for basic facts. Frax Math does it for fractions. And we know with ratios, proportions, percentages.
FRACS.
FRAX. Yeah, Frax Math, which is, it's very similar to Reflex Math. So actually Linda Bradley, who's our math coordinator, will be sharing, I think we're meeting with her later this week. She actually has a sandbox license to get in there and just play around. Loves it. She sold me on it, and it's all about fractions. All the research says in our grades. So there'll be something for all students to access that over the summer as well. So we're trying to put a package together, a myriad of items that principals can send out in newsletters.
So these are supplemental resources, these are not in-person opportunities?
No, just because we want to make sure we have the staffing available for our extended school year, because that's critical. We know that that's required, and we don't want staffing to become an issue. We want to be able to have something out there for all students. It was a struggle last year to get some parents to attend in person, so this way it can be offered to anybody who needs it.
And we don't, and if I remember correctly, we're not having the jump start because of full-day kindergarten?
Yes, we're still collecting data. We're still going to do the screening for kindergarten students, but not the Jump Start program because it's an FDA program.
So, but are you still going for summer?
That's me, K to 5.
Okay,
K through 6.
and 7 through 12, we utilize the online BBA program for credit recovery and course remediation. So it is an online program. Traditionally, we have staff members who are coordinators of the program through supplemental contract. We actually, that position for the high school was just actually reposted, and we redid our job description to ensure that it includes that, not only do the coordinators assist families and students with signing up with courses, but they're also in charge of monitoring student progress.
Attention all custodians, there's 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. You can come down and help us out, we appreciate it, thank you.
What's the score?
All right, I was trying to be polite.
We were up 2 at halftime, that's all I.
We're up 2?
At halftime.
That doesn't help with
Yeah.
basketball. Education committee.
So the coordinators assist with that registration, but they monitor student progress. So they hold office hours both virtually and in person. So that's the expectation. So if someone is struggling with completion or getting things done, that coordinator is going to be the person that's reaching out to help them to meet their needs.
If I can interject, actually, we're doing the same thing at the elementary level. We hired a grade level coordinator to mirror what happens at the secondary level. To have even if a parent of the student needs to come in, there'll be opportunities for an on-site as well as open office hours that the parents will know if they have technical issues or just student needs to reach out to that particular grade level coordinator.
And then similar to last year, we'll make sure that we have that comprehensive Google site for all of the summer work for the high school to make it easy for students to access any work that they need to do over the summer for their upcoming courses.
And when you say credit recovery, is that a polite way of saying
Yes.
you did not pass?
Yes.
Okay. And with summer school, we certainly don't know, nobody knows everything. I just learned, for example, that if a child, let's say they weren't on the math track that they wanted to be on. I just didn't know this as a parent, that they could take geometry over the summer.
There are some acceleration options that are indicated in the PPG.
Okay, and that was my next question.
And that's part of it also.
A parent would know about that through the program planning
Yes.
guide. Okay.
Program planning guide.
And so that if they were talking with their counselor and they were like, I'm disappointed I can't
Right.
do that, they could
Yes.
do that.
And the counselors are actually, they've been very, very busy, being very thorough. They've been holding meetings with every student in the school about scheduling. So they've been really kind of coming down and talking to kids about recommendations and talking about things like that and helping to guide and direct students in this process.
But we'll be honest, it's taking a year-long course. And
No, I
compressing it,
know.
so
I'm not
it's
saying I
rigorous.
suggest it. I just
Yeah,
didn't know
no.
that even I have to,
It's available.
I finally caught up to Jen, and we'll all both have 3 high schoolers next year, but she's got me beat. So, while we're talking about summer school and secondary, the Boost program, and I know there's a lot of things being done. So I know I'm asking kind of a loaded question, but in short, what are some of the things we did Boost because we were worried that, kids lost some learning. We all, knew that. What are some of the things in the high school being done in short? I know we've talked about it before, but briefly, if you could give
I think what we're seeing more in the high school is teachers are looking at their courses as they're teaching them, and they need to adjust instruction, or they need to incorporate different skills, and they need to be really flexible with the students that are in front of them and really provide that tailored help to the students that are there. It's a little different than being in elementary school, and asking for a student to stay after, so it is more adaptable based on the course that's in front of them.
And so maybe when the time is, because it's not that there's less data in high school, because it's like it's different data. If we could, now that Keystones are back, like if we could, obviously we're gonna know this many passed this year versus the last time they were taken. But if we could find out, obviously we can't yet because it's March 1st, but if we could find out how many kids needed credit recovery in the past versus this year, and not just to let us know, because I think sometimes it's all doom and gloom, and sometimes it is doom and gloom, like there is negative, negative consequences, but sometimes it's not as, I don't wanna say not as bad as we think, but I would like to know.
And I don't want you to think we're not thinking of this. In fact, like the MTSS process that we're talking about at the elementary level, the intention of the district is to move that forward through the secondary level. So, and that will look different and sound different as you reach in that 7 through 12, but it is something we're constantly looking for. What's the best way to support our students in their learning? And to support our teachers in their teaching. So that's all part of.
And we did talk about that, not last month, but the month before. Only other thing I wanted to ask is, what happens, like, high school's high school, right? And we know what K to 6 is, K to 5 especially, but what happens at, like, I know from teaching 7th grade, like, you don't really fail 7th grade, like, they work with you, right? Because it's 7th grade, it's secondary. But is there anything that is happening more for our COLA?
I think in my experience, that communication piece and the connection with the counselor becomes very important, because if a student's not academically doing well in middle school, really your goal is to try to figure out, well, what can I do to support you to build your skills and to build your habits so that you can be successful as you move on in education. So I think that and in any of these situations, that communication becomes such an important piece. We're at the middle of the year. If a student's struggling academically and we're sitting worried about them potentially not needing to take a summer school course, that communication should be going on at this point. Whether it's the teacher, the counselor really kind of drawing in and saying, okay, well, this is what we can do for the rest of the year to improve, or this is what we need to work on skill-wise next year, so that way we're building those good habits and be successful.
And I know you are on this as a secondary curriculum, but also your former German. I won't bring up your past, but being that foreign language educator. We've discussed this before, but it's now going to be even more important. When we made the changes to foreign language at our COLA, right? We changed that. We knew that might cause blips. Then we have COVID, so that causes blips. So how is the Spanish 2, the French 2? Are they still adjusting in high school?
They are still adjusting.
Based on the changes at our COLA?
I do think they are still adjusting. There is definitely adjustment going on, and I would hope that next year our students go to be better than this year. But that said, I think that's always something we're examining. There were a number of changes that were made to our COLA schedule that, if you're in education, you're constantly evaluating what you did, right? And saying, this is what we did, this is what has worked, this is what maybe needs to be improved. So we'll, continue to have more information for you moving forward. I know that you all had asked about that as a topic for April, so
okay.
Something.
That is okay. I didn't know if that was still okay. Yeah, just because they always talk about middle school being I forget the exact term in education, not the forgotten one. That sounds terrible, but middle school, and so I know the twos, the level 2 foreign language is probably still going to have to be adjusted, or shall we say,
and I do think we should, and I do still think it's a good idea to have that summer work to encourage students between level 1 and level 2 to stay, because a lot of that is staying fresh with your, keep using it, because if you don't, then you forget.
Yeah, if I could just make one suggestion with the summer work, because I think that's important. When it comes, maybe there's a way that teachers could create an auto-populated email that focuses to the parent, like, I do suggest that you do, like an MTSS approach, I do suggest your son received the C in Spanish. Here's the link for these resources that are on the website, but here it is. So providing an individualized letter from on that course specific to the parent will help that parent, because I do find that the feedback that I received was just a matter of, I didn't know if they had Spanish work that they had to do over the summer. I didn't know where it was. I can't find it. We could say that, but when you put it into an individualized hyperlink into the email about that one student's area that could improve with some summer work, it allows the parent a little bit more focus. So that's the only thing that I would definitely recommend. I mean, you're going to do your resources, and I thought they were well laid out. I really liked how you guys had it. I thought it was easy accessible, but I do think it gives the parents a little bit like, oh, my son is
Multiple
targeted
ways
for
of
needs.
communication.
Yeah, just like more individualized letter with that resource in there.
Jen, you might want to write down this date and time. I 110 million% agree.
You always agree with me.
I know, come on. I know sometimes I don't always, but I
You
do.
love to agree and disagree.
We often trust everyone's judgment, but I do think you're absolutely right that a targeted thing is needed.
It might even help, like, okay, if my son needs math, and then I'm really gonna tell them about
And
math.
I think it does help. I think it is our job. To help parents, and if they're prioritizing their child's summer work, if I got a targeted email from Matt
It
or
becomes
from
a lot for
Spanish,
everybody in their
it would be
summer.
helpful. Thank you for that suggestion.
You're welcome.
I was just gonna ask a clarifying question now. You thinking targeted for 7 to 12 or for?
What I'm thinking is, I think we should give it to the secondary curriculum and the first and primary. I think it should be for every one of them. I think it should be for, don't
I
you
think
think?
we'll talk and we'll see what our system allows for,
Right? I think
because
like
you
the
don't
Spanish
want
teacher has like A, B kids, but that's
they
C
have a
kids.
lot of students, so that's personalized, it's becoming, it's that, how do you,
Well,
what can we do with the
auto-populate,
system?
almost like
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
no, and I
Yeah.
agree. I don't mean it doesn't have
It's
to
just
say
logistically thinking about how do we do this, so
Jimmy's
we,
parents.
yeah.
Same format,
Give it a little
just
bit
a
of
little
thought.
line in there.
Well, let's look at Power School.
Yeah, and we'll look and see what we
might
can
be able
leverage.
to produce a report that can generate a template based off scores. It's not something abnormal that we don't do for eligibility requirements, athletics, let's say.
Yeah.
It would be great, so let's take a look at it. It's a good suggestion.
So what you'll see is coming across, you'll see a supplemental contract for these summer school coordinators. We actually have a summer school coordinator, I think you guys approved it, for our high school, because that's critical. We had to get that out early because we're starting to plan now, but you'll see, we'll post the jobs probably later this month, and you'll have something probably in April. So we'll have those grade level, summer school coordinators identified.
How many?
And elementary would be one per grade
One
level.
per grade
Yeah,
level.
K to 6. And 7 to 12, I think it's based on.
There's typically one at Arcola and one at the high school.
Parenting is difficult, so if we can help in any way.
Appreciate it.
And I might make it through our whole meeting without a parenting emergency.
Can I ask one question?
Yes.
Maybe slightly off, but a little, we're talking about the gap that some of the students are meeting, certainly coming back this year and being out for a long period and maybe not coming back last year, so there's a maturity gap in especially the middle schools, but also even in the high school is my understanding. Are we seeing that getting better as time's getting along here, or?
To be honest, I haven't talked with the high school about that lately. We talked about that earlier in the year because we were really definitely seeing that, and Dr. Gravitys and her team were putting some things, into action to try to combat that and help that along. So I can certainly check on that. But I do think some of that, there was definitely a gap there between what you would typically have seen as a high school student versus what you saw coming
And
in.
if anyone's preparing our COLA, if that could be brought up. And to piggyback, Paul, on what you said, and I know you're not finished, I'm sorry. I know we had to have some pretty serious meetings at my school, and I had just spoken, and I'm not gonna say his name right, so that Mr. Bordeaux.
They've been conducting town hall meetings.
Yes, I was just gonna say,
Mr.
and
Bordeaux and
he
Mr.
said,
Thompson have been doing
yes,
some town hall
and
meetings.
they just started
Yep.
those town hall meetings for that, for one of those reasons, and they have started them, because I saw those in the announcements, and we had to do the same at my school. Cause they forgot how to be in a school setting, and I don't think, or they knew how to be in a school setting in 5th grade, but not in 2nd grade, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, they changed,
Yeah.
changed a lot, and
Yes.
it sort of goes back to Dr. Angstad around social emotional and mental health. And I just hope there's a high level of participation of parents, because I think, for teacher retention and for saneness and discipline, the parents are gonna have to find a way to also support the maturity and the discipline. And I'm not saying they're not, but more of an awareness that it's us together. I really do believe that we have to find a way to communicate that to the community, because if it's just like, you gotta fix it, you gotta fix it, you gotta fix it, we're swimming upstream a little bit.
The other thing that people have reported to me is it's many of the students, when they weren't here, it was all through social media or through text messages. They weren't really talking to each other, and they've lost how to engage with each other. And that's part of the things that Tom and we were talking about, is how do you reconnect, how do you build those relationships back, the importance of friendships. Really kind of, let's not forget what we used to have.
And I know Arcola made a switch to how they do lunch for that purpose, let's try to get these kids to, back to choosing where they sit. That's where that scan came in.
Our teachers have just been doing an amazing job too about reaching out to families, for students in crisis or in need, or just help or support, counselors, just really having that communication, because the care of our student is the priority.
I mean, if you've been teaching 9th grade and all, now you have 7th grade maturity, all of a sudden, you now have a different element to worry about as a teacher that really you haven't been doing and you prefer not to, probably. So, okay, thank you.
Unfortunately, we're not successful in our basketball.
No, you gotta be kidding me.
See, here I am, the SAP. I'm like, oh, that's for more students. I mean, I know it's SAP.
No,
I know
you are
I'm
not
the SAP. I'm the SAP. I'm sorry.
No, you are for our.
I knew you would.
Now back to our regular
I
program.
just meant, it's awful, but I just mean.
So what was the score?
I do have, so I think summer school was brought up in policy just because the family was concerned about structure and content, right? And based on what was provided, we're really thinking about for this summer. So ESY out aside the boost, and then offering some online.
Yes, but the boost, everything will be online.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're having a myriad and a menu of choices that parents can choose from. For tier 3, we're probably gonna stick with Lexia if they're in reading, Reflex Math if they're in a primary grade for math, and Frax Math for the older grades. Secondary, again, it's subject, credit recovery, etc. And we use BVA. Montgomery County also offers some different choices, so yeah. But it will be pretty much asynchronous with that counselor or that coordinator available for outreach. We haven't determined the timeline yet, probably about 4 to 5 weeks.
And have we looked at the async method to see if, I guess if it needs any improvement or anything else?
I think the difference this year at the elementary level will be having that grade level coordinator, because last year was really asynchronous without a connection back in the building. We did realize we wanted to make sure their parents, if they're down at the shore, if they're in the mountains, where they can still have that there's office hours to reach out for support. So those coordinators will let parents know the morning, afternoon hours, and they will be available. And if they want to do a drop-in, one of the requirements will be to have availability for the students to drop in for some different support.
Okay, so that would be the
And the DBA will be, is it virtual?
Yeah,
learning?
regular virtual, yeah. That's who we currently use as well, Methacton.
So they will be able to reach out to the DBA
They
teacher.
will be able, and our coordinator.
And our coordinator.
Okay.
Well, good evening, everyone.
It's the last
Oh, yeah. And is it alphabetical? It's not even alphabetical. All right, you gotta let the guy go
So
first
next time I'll
next
first.
time, yeah.
So since the last time that I spoke to the committee, which was January, really one of the biggest things that has started to take shape was the program evaluation for the one-to-one program within the district. We kicked off a conversation with instructional council last month in February. That is going to be a consistent item that will be on the agenda. Last month it was more so just to be able to gain some initial feedback on the program, K-12, that we have at this point coming back into the year now. The next step that has been a little bit of a challenge, but we've had some success recently, is really in trying to find an objective rubric to be able to assess the district, right? And one of the pieces is to be able to get a tool that is general enough to what we need to be able to assess where we are in the program, yet has the ability to be able to be modified enough to meet our specific needs. So about 3-4 weeks ago, I came across a rubric that was produced by the Friday Institute for Educational Innovation from North Carolina State University. And the Friday Institute focuses primarily on K-12 education. It was initially started to be able to support the digital learning initiative in the state of North Carolina, and has branched out since then to be able to support K-12 education across the country. So I took a look at the rubric, and it's based upon 5 essential tenets: leadership, technology and infrastructure, content and instruction, professional learning, and data and assessment. Those are the 5 key areas. So then just recently, Dr. Walsh and I did an initial joint assessment of it to take a look, to be able to make sure that this is something that we feel that would be able to provide as value for the district itself, not only from a curricular standpoint, but also from a technology standpoint, to be able to have a true objective resource. So from there, the next step will be then going and seeing what we can do to be able to modify this to meet the needs of the Methacton School District itself. That had led me to actually reach out to the Institute and connect with the Senior Director of the Institute, Dr. Sean Kellogg, to be able to make sure that this was an open source public forum document that we had the opportunity to be able to modify. So we do, that's good. It's rooted in the ISTE standards, International Society for Technology and Education, and as well the National Ed Tech Plan that was created back in 2017. The actual framework of it itself, those 5 pillars, actually mirror the National Educational Technology Plan. So the next step will then be, myself, Dr. Walsh, the curriculum department, to be able to start looking at, all right, what modifications do we need to be able to make to this rubric? What may we remove from it? What might we want to add to it to be able to provide that true objective assessment of our one-to-one program within the district. The second piece, that from looking at the foundation of the National Ed Tech Plan, was that I just happened to come across a individual that is in my professional learning network who now works at the Office of Education, or Department of Education, in the Office of Educational Technology. And I was able to connect with her today. She's the Deputy Director down there now. And was able just to bounce some questions off of her in regards to what they're looking at for their next update, which will be coming likely in 2023. And she's going to also provide some resources that we may be able to utilize as we continue down this path for the assessment itself. Otherwise, we're also looking at the framework of the program in regards to documentation, language that may be posted out on the Methacton website, parent resources, student resources, so that we can, while there's a longer term goal of the program K-12, there's also some shorter term pieces in regards to, what we need to be able to do that we can improve on here at the end of the year, but also in preparation for the next academic year from just more of the day in and day out needs of the program. And, responsibility of the student, responsibility of expectations in regards to use within the classroom, and general processes that the students are expected to be able to go through, and expectation in the classroom as well. So that is starting to gain some good traction. So that's certainly a lot of other things that are taking place, but that's the bulk of the updates that we're going to be able to provide to the community for this month.
Any more thoughts on the monitoring system like Kapara?
So some thoughts, yes. Really, I've engaged Mrs. Barkle and Mr. Bourdreau in regards to assessing some more feedback from their levels. It seems that from the feedback I've gotten thus far from the principals, that it really is focused the potential need in 5 through 8. So we're trying to assess that a little bit more. I have gone through and done a number of different demonstrations with vendors on the possibility of what the different vendors offer, and what if we would go down that path, which may be the best match for the systems that we already have in place.
Any thoughts on when? We're not talking this school year.
No.
If possible, maybe we could get a few licenses to try some out and let some teachers try it, because it might even be more useful in the spring.
Maybe possible, yes.
It is incredibly useful in my classrooms, incredibly. I can't thank it enough. When we talk about maturity, like these kids were on computers for years, right? Like, it's,
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We'll get some
I
feedback.
just, that way people can maybe see how easy it is and be excited about it. Because it's, when I first heard about it, I'm like, huh? So great.
Yeah, the only question I have, as part of your review, you're also evaluating use of the technical integrators, technology integrators that we have, and,
yes,
and best practices, because I know they're valued tremendously by the staff, but are they used consistently in the way you want them to be used? Because it seems that they're a little free form on how they do their thing.
Yeah, and frankly, I think part of that is because of the work that needs to be done with the program overall. Now while they fall under curriculum itself, I work very closely with them from the technology support standpoint. And we had a very open conversation about a week and a half ago, myself with the 3 of them. And, in some cases it's responding to the request of, teachers have found this, so can you help me to see how I might be able to incorporate it in the classroom? Which is good. But also we want to be able to have the guidance of here are long-term goals, here are the learning outcomes, and this tool may help you to be able to achieve, X learning outcomes. So just having more of a focused approach.
Yeah, no, I'm not discounting their importance.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Anybody else for Mr. Brannick? We can see the enrollment report, just out of curiosity, any updated kindergarten number for registration?
Yes.
Go ahead.
And remember, this is.
I know, this is a month early. We don't usually open it till today.
We're pleased to announce right now, as of today, we have 200 students registered for the kindergarten. So we're working with Amanda Kelly on how we can get that information out, continue to, get that information out. You don't automatically enroll if you have a sibling in the district. You gotta get in to register. So we're just continuing. You'll see lots of things going on social media, but for the first month, considering it was 1 month ago today.
No, that's wonderful. That's great. That's a good start. I know, but now you gotta get the rest.
Yeah, but we, 5 months, 5.5 months still, so we got a long way, but we're just continuing to spread the word through our home school associations and getting them out into the community that we're still to register.
And I think some schools just opened theirs because it's the normal time, so that'll help people, because they'll be like, oh, I registered mine. Oh yeah, I gotta do that.
Yeah. And when you buy a house, we don't register you automatically. Gotta come in
Yeah.
and store it.
Any closing remarks before courtesy of the floor? Or questions, thoughts? Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Samir?
Yeah.
Again, this will become available as well, 4603 for the month of March, starting March 1st, I should say. And again, see at the bottom, historical data on back in 2007. So, and right now, this time of year is pretty stable. The first 2 months we have ebbs and flows, but we're now, as you can tell, we're at a pretty solid one right now. There's very little differential, you can see. Virtual numbers, they're in here.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah. In fact, virtual academy. So you can see that. All right, any questions?
Anybody for courtesy of the floor?
I have a few comments from people who are watching. Just 3 very quick ones. One, could someone, for people who don't know, what is the policy for reviewing curriculum and textbooks? You talked about the 30 days, but people who haven't ever done that process, what is it? 2, with the one book, one school thing, I know it's not a voting item, but is there any feedback from the public or parents or students or teachers who have utilized that book, and what is the just how's the process whole work in selecting it? And then the last one was, is there any plan to do an autopsy on the differences in maturity and things that happened over the past 2 years, where we came from, where we were, and where we hope to be, in another 2 years? So is there any plan to do like a how we handled COVID, how we handled the pandemic kind of report in education? And that was the only comments I got.
Curriculum review, they go to the call Farina.
Yes, so after they go on display, there's a 30-day public review. We call the curriculum office at an appointment, and they're one of the 2 secretaries, and Mrs. Wilson or Mrs. Everett will arrange to come in and look at the curriculum documents and the textbooks that are under review, and bring them back forward for board approval.
And as far as one book, one school, I believe you said there's a committee at the
There
high
is a
school.
committee of staff members from high school that when we're selecting a new book, they read all of the book options in advance, and then they schedule a time to meet as a committee, and then they present a 1-page summary and an explanation of why they're choosing the book they're choosing to present to the building level principal, so that way including benefits, any concerns, and then that information gets reviewed by the principal as well as members of cabinet, so that the final determination can be made. And typically it's done by the end of March.
And I would assume, and I'll let the administrators pipe in, that as far as the autopsy of where we are, I think that's kind of organic in terms of the data that we go over, the conversations about the town halls and conversations among our staff and our admin that is probably discussed in different ways at committees. Is there any other way to explain that?
No, I think
I didn't get it, so you're good. I didn't get it. That was the word.
I guess it was that word.
I think the autopsy is just, I think you said it really well. In this ongoing, flowing operation we've been doing since the beginning, we're constantly assessing decisions we make and what we've done each month. So I think it's a great question, because what we've just been doing it continuously.
It's different based on the department you're in and what is the work
Schools,
based on
what level.
things that I'm doing for special education, I'm doing for different reasons, and so I'm analyzing that differently than maybe you would through curriculum.
Even when we look at our PSSA data, we asked students to come in to take it. The first time they were stepping in school last year was the first time. So that unto itself, we were required to take the test, so we knew that our result really isn't apples to apples. It was kind of like that asterisk that's going to be on there for a variety of reasons.
And I would imagine that since the pandemic, I mean, when it considered over, but about 2 years, that our recouping and readjusting will also be probably about that long.
But I think I understand what you're saying, and I think it's great that we do a summary of how we've handled the past 2 years, because through the year, 1 year, and then the second year, we have added different services. As soon as we identify the need, we immediately put in services. So I think, if like a 2-year synopsis of showing, like, at this stage we did this, at this stage we did that, in summary, exactly from mental health supports like we did, from the Reece to the SOAR, to the after-school program that we did with the tutoring, to the boost for the elementary level. We really did it on such a multi-level layer. So, I mean, listen, I agree, like, you do a 2-year summary that, we're hopefully out of this pandemic. But I do think that Dr. Zerbe does do something like that similar in June, of a summary of what we do, but if it's focused on what particularly this pandemic has done, I think that's something that we could easily pull together, for sure. So I think, because we have continuously adapted, changed, put in certain resources, support, so
Yeah,
to see that.
That was well said. In June, you remember last year we did this, right? We produced all the things that we had done over that last year and our responses to different items. So I would imagine we can bring that up to Dr. Zerbe to do it again.
I'll definitely do that.
Lots of thank yous from the public.
Add to the, just looking at the staff numbers, did those go up? That's all recorded, which is, it's confidential information, but not numbers. Numbers isn't confidential. Anybody else?
I came to hear the Wonders presentation 2 hours
And you
ago.
stayed.
But I really appreciated that whoever invited the 2 teachers in, I thought that was so wonderful that you could hear directly from the teachers doing it. And it did relieve a little bit of anxiety on my part to know that it's not going to be a whole new, spelling program. And I was very vocal, as you know, about the original Wonders purchase. So I think teachers will be excited about it, and it seems like it will be a good thing. So thank you for. I think it's great that you invite the teachers to actually, hear them indirectly, right? We're the ones got to do it. So
We were vocal and advocated, and we're able to
Yes.
fix some of the things. It's advocating. It's advocating.
And hopefully, the only thing I have to say is hopefully the comments from the 2 teachers are across the board from all the teachers that were piloting this.
I haven't heard anything negative. I hadn't heard, when you're doing the job day to day, there's no time to, if you're not piloting, there's no time to hear the whole program. So it was really nice to hear it and to see the components we'll get and all of that. And I am very happy that the in-servicing will be before the last week of August.
Well, and I can add to.
You're wonderful.
Well, the thing is, we all feel it's not only important to have the teachers that are living and breathing and sharing their on the boots, on the ground, boots on the ground. But the second part is having all the materials prior to going away for summer, so there's time to collaborate, MIAC hours, etc. And Tara and I talked about doing some summer drop-ins as well. So lots of people, but you won't really need it. This program is just going to be a nice refresh. Cool.
Yeah, I think it'll be good.
Anybody else? All right. 8:41. I did not write it down.
And what was not? Can you tell us the score? What was the final score?
Tell me, what was
Go Girls tomorrow.
What's girls? Oh, the girls tomorrow.
It went the wrong direction for a little while.
Oh, gosh.
It's a bummer.
Thank you.
Can you give me a few